today we have two very nice people presenting. If you don't do anything and just go along, by the time we end, आपका mood बहुत अच्छा हो गया होगा. So today Anjali ma'am and Harish sir will be there. Next slide, please. So I welcome Professor Dr. Tufan Pati sir. He's from Cuttack. He's the chairman of the program. And since he does not like long introduction, so over to you, sir.
Thank you, Alim. So I would also like to be such because we have got two erudite speakers. There is my dear friend and Dr. Anjali Chavaria. So we look forward to listen to them. With us, we have got Dr. Amrit Patjoshi and Dr. Alim Siddiqui as the moderators. Dr. Amrit Patjoshi is a professor of psychiatry in High Tech Medical College and he's chief consultant in Amri Hospital and Healing Touch Clinic. He is at present a direct council member of IPS and editor of Odisha Journal of Psychiatry. The chief coordinator of UNICEF WHO IPS Initiative on Telemedicine and Psychosocial Management during COVID-19. We also have with us Dr. Alim Siddiqui Nawab of Lucknow, who is Director of Healthy Mind Neuropsychiatry and Behavioral Sciences Center. He is the visiting professor of psychiatry in Eras Lucknow Medical College and Hospital and Lucknow and GSP Medical College, Kanpur. He is the past direct council member of IPS. He is a guest faculty at Amity University, Lucknow. He is the finance secretary of IMA Lucknow as well as IAVP UK plus UK chapter. And now I have the privilege to introduce our eminent chairpersons, Dr. Dussad Ram from Saudi Arabia. His present position is Associate Professor of Psychiatry at Shakra University, Saudi Arabia. I think I'm pronouncing correctly. He is MD from CIP Ranchi in 2008. His affiliation in Professional Society is 7. Publication in peer-reviewed journals 60. Book chapters 10. Presentation in national and international conferences 17. His reviewer of national and international journals, 13 number of journals. Areas of interest, suicide prevention, women mental health, social psychiatry. Welcome, Dr. Ram. And we have with us Dr. Cyril Jan Sintila Nathan from Mumbai. She has been born and raised in Mumbai. She practices Dr. L.H. Hiranandani Hospital, Powai and Holy Spirit Hospital, Andheri. Dr. Cyril is attached to SET VC Gandhi and M.A. Vora Municipal General Hospital, Khatkapur, as assistant honorary psychiatrist. She is currently on the board of trustees of FIA-MC and was part of executive committee of Bombay Psychiatric Society as well as St. Luke Medical Gate. She is the convener of NGO Patient Carer Subcommittee of IPS. Dr. Cyril's areas of interest are adult psychiatry, de-addiction, consultant liaison psychiatry, and stress management. She is trained in psychiatry in Lokmanya Tilak Municipal Medical College and Hospital and received her MD degree and diploma. She is a certified personal counselor in Kharkov model of counseling and is also completed DBT under Marsha Line. A passionate advocate of community mental health, she volunteers her time to Prem Dhan and Asadhan. Mental health awareness and destigmatizing mental illness has driven her to deliver lecture across the length and breadth of the country. Welcome, Dr. Cyril. And welcome, Dr. Tushar, Dr. Cyril, the chairpersons of the meeting. And I think you know about the schedule of the meeting. And now the meeting is handed over to the chairpersons. Please take over. With this, I take a little break to send my personal compliments to Dr. Harish Sethi, my dear friend. Over to Dr. Tushar.
Sir, thank you for your kind introduction and detailing. I am very happy that Thursday Musing team had decided to take on this topic that is much needed and less talk about. And being a medical model predominant psychiatry practice in India, now it is the time to look other modes of services which can be very fruitful to our population. Our cultural differences are there from the Western countries. In keeping in so many differences from so-called ideal service provision in Western countries, and now it is the time to talk in our country also as to how it can be utilized for the betterment of mental health of our country. So this is very nice topic, and I congratulate the Thirst Musing all entire team to bring this topic for uh, uh, today's topic. And I request Madam to introduce the speakers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dishad, and thank you so much, Dr. Tufan Patti and team, for inviting us and giving us this honor and privilege to be the chairperson. It is indeed my honor and privilege to introduce the two speakers, dynamic psychiatrists from Mumbai. So, who better than, I think, somebody from Mumbai who's kind of, they've been our inspiration. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. What can I say about Dr. Harish Shetty that's not said before? So we know that, he does so much of work in mental health, in connection with disasters. Throughout the last 1 year, he's been active with the COVID, and dispensing information about COVID, COVID mental health, a lot of mental health intervention to a lot of people. Like we've seen in his CV, he talks, wherever there is a disaster, we have Dr. Harish Shetty there. So indeed, he works very, very closely with a lot of groups involved in mental health, and he would be a right person to guide us and show us the way ahead. So thank you, and welcome, Dr. Harish Shetty. The next speaker is Dr. Anjali Tabaria. She's another very, very leading psychiatrist in India, as well as, our Mumbai ki shaan, we can say. So she runs Mind Temple. She's a trained past life regression therapist, hypnotist. And again, during this time, she has worked extensively with mental health groups. She's attached with a lot of bereavement groups, which is the need of the hour regarding with the grief associated with COVID and COVID survivors. So welcome, Dr. Anjali, and I'm handing it over to the speakers to carry forward.
Hi, sorry. Hi, a very good evening to all of you here. Thank you for being here with us today. And I think let's just start with the topic itself, because we are just introducing the topic for the next 5 to 7 minutes. After that, we want to dive right into what we can do. We do not want this to be a theoretical topic. We want practical, we want action. And we are hoping that the end of 1 to 1.5 hours that we spend together, we are able to dive into, helping India's mental health. That is why we are here today. And let's just start by understanding what is, why we are doing this topic. Can I have the slides, please? I'm sure whatever I'm sharing with you for the next 5 minutes is something that you all know, but I thought that just for the setting, just to get into the mood, just to revise whatever you may have read many, many years ago, we need to go through this. Can I have the next slide, please? And please ask a lot of questions. We are here not for theory. So we all know, we've all read what is group therapy. And basically, it is getting a few people together with a common issue and trying to help them get better, in a group setting. Next slide, please. So there are different types of group therapy. This is no classification. This is just a classification to help us remember that, yes, there are open groups in which people come and go. There are closed groups which have a perfect timeline to it and do not allow people to go in and out. The number of sessions have to be decided at the beginning of the group. This is a group where there is, unlike the open group, which, allows people to express, the closed group has an agenda to it. Then there are different groups where we can, form groups with people with mental illness. We can also have family support groups for their caregivers. And yes, today we are I mean, we have already started bereavement and grief groups because today we think that that is the need of the hour. So can I go to the next slide? Now, what is the benefit of group therapy? Okay, we all talk about stigma in India. And I think 20 to 25 years ago, when we started our first support group, we realized that this was a lovely way, a beautiful way of reducing the stigma. Because what happens is that when people come and they talk in a group of people together, you know, many a times you realize that you're not alone. It helps you to put your own problem in perspective. And when you hear of different ideas and strategies which face our own concerns, caregiver groups, we see this happening. You have a schizophrenic support group for the parents. And over there, if there is one person who talks about his son getting violent, another parent chips in and says that, okay, maybe when my son was getting violent, this is what we did. So what happens is that there is a type of bonding that happens over here. There is a type of support. And what we have seen, especially in mental illnesses, that there is one common thread, and that is people feel alone. So if we have them together in a support group, we feel that this sense of feeling alone slowly vanishes, and people who have been, just submerged in their own problems start feeling lighter, start discussing their issues, and also look at each other for help, and are better able to cope with the problems. We also help them to become leaders, and these are the people who can go and really change the history of mental health in our country. Can I have the next slide, please? So basically, what are the goals of group therapy? Again, depending upon the groups which are there. If you are looking at, I remember which we were doing a support group for people with personality disorders, borderline personality disorders. And here, when we used a few techniques, we could see that suddenly the individual, who was so selfish and could not look beyond himself, actually started empathizing and understanding what his maladaptive behavior was. Also, when we are playing games in group therapies, what happens is that people can understand their own emotional issues. And of course, there is a supportive environment, and sometimes it also helps to develop social skills. So I again remember over here when we had taken a group of introverted boys together, and in that group, suddenly we could see that by the third or fourth session, and when we had started that group, they were allowed to get for one of the sessions, they were actually allowed to bring whatever they wanted. So somebody got a guitar, and when he started playing the guitar, someone else started singing a song. And what had started with 5 to 6 asocial people, suddenly they formed a bond. Can I have the next slide? Of course, we have to have certain rules of group therapy. There have to be do's and don'ts. Next. So confidentiality is something that is emphasized again and again. Okay. The cause has to be shared. When you try to put a group together, that is the first do of it, So what are we looking at? Are we looking at a support group? Are we looking at a group therapy where we want to solve a problem? Okay. The privacy is extremely important, and that is sometimes can become a little challenging because people, it's natural for people to gossip. It's natural for people, to get aggressive. And so we have to be extremely strict about, it's almost like, the group therapies, the support groups that we are running now, we're actually, making them sign a contract, so that there are certain procedures and guidelines, and people do not gossip about it. And yes, about exclusive relationships. I remember I was running this group called Single Again, and of course, when we are putting people who are single again, either because of a bad relationship, divorce, or they've got widowed, we were thinking that, we are putting single people together and we are telling them not to date. But what we came to a conclusion that, whatever happens outside the group is not our problem, but at least in the group, we are going to make this rule very clear that if anyone starts dating each other, we're going to ask one of the people to leave the group. Okay. And of course, alcohol and drug use or abuse in the group is absolutely not allowed. Next slide, please. So actually, what is the group therapy process? So the first stage is the forming stage, when people are just coming together, and that stage is very interesting, and it is extremely important for the leader of the group, for the therapist, to see that the group is led in certain way, as well as to help people to participate, so help people to cool down, help people to give each other a chance to talk. Next slide. The second is the storming stage. Now people are understanding what's happening, and they also get a feeling of belongingness. So they want to push their ideas, they want to talk about what they think is right, and there may be stormy discussions. I remember in one such group, it was Dr. Shetty's schizophrenia support group for relatives. And, this entire discussion came up about ECTs. Oh, so-and-so doctor gave ECTs, he's a bad doctor, etc., etc. And it is at such times that the leader, the group therapist has to, really take control of the group. Next slide, please. This is where the group is becoming fun, enjoyable. The interactions are a lot easier, more cooperative and productive. And people are finally starting to openly communicate and bond, and also respect each other's decisions. Next one. And yes, this is actually what we want. Okay. And that is the group, the performing stage, where the group is becoming united. And now we are trying to achieve group goals. Of course, the goals have to be defined if it's a closed group at the beginning of the group. Okay. And then people start, getting better and also helping each other perform better and work towards a common goal. Next one. Now, this is when the group is finally, the project is coming to an end. The team members are now going to move off in different directions with some memories of the group, with some memories of what they have learned. And hopefully, our aim is that by the end of the group, if it's a closed group, they should be able to achieve a few of the goals which they had set out to achieve. Next one, please. Now, why are we talking about group therapy? What we have all been talking about, that after the COVID settles down, we're going to have a mental health epidemic. And we are already seeing the pandemic has impacted a wide range of age groups. So, we all know what is happening. We've all heard about violence at home. We all know about what's happening to the geriatrics, what's happening to the youth. And that is why we really feel that this is the time, if we can lead groups in our country, we may be able to at least help a few more people, because it will also help, we all talk about stigma. Can I have the next slide, please? We all talk about stigma. We all talk about, oh, it's expensive to see a mental health professional, So we know that if we can introduce group therapies, we may be able to impact more people. We may be able to reach out and destigmatize mental illnesses. and that will collectively help the mental health of India. Next one, please. So guys, let's start. And to this, I call Dr. Harish Shetty to take this discussion ahead. We'll use the slide later.
Good evening, friends. Very happy to see Torrent supporting this entire event. Congratulations, Torrent, for being there with us. Happy to see Ali Bhai on this Thursday musings for such a long time. And congratulations, IPS. Alim Bhai has a beautiful DP with one magnifying glass, one of his eyes on the WhatsApp. And very interesting. Amit Patjoshi, Dushad Ram, Tufan Patti, you're also my dear friend, okay? So my memory goes some years ago, more than 30 years ago, 1990s. I still remember Professor Srinivas Murthy saying, Dr. Shetty, what is this money you're making? I said, I'm not making any money. I'm still on my motorbike. And he said, can you not remove 5,000 rupees and start a support group for patients of schizophrenia? I said, good idea. And at that point of time, I was teaching at TISS. And Abhijit Prabhugate said, "Mujhe job chahiye." I said, job mil gaya tumko. And that's how we started the first support group, schizophrenia patients and families. Let me tell you, we did not do anything. We knew Nirmala Srinivasan doing some good work in Bangalore. Sa started much later or along the same time, but I did not have any experience. I really did not know what to do. So I said, of course, Abhijit, let's start. How do we start? He said, we'll start a Sunday group. So I said, I told my patients, आप लोग group meeting में आएंगे? उन्होंने कहा, क्यों आने का? Will you charge us? What will happen there? And I did not know what will happen there, honestly. But there was something in my mind which was fairly clear. Every time patients of schizophrenia come and ask us what is schizophrenia, even after 15 years of treatment, like, tum batao, schizophrenia hai kahan? And I always thought about this in my mind. Why do they still continue asking, though they have been explained a million times? And I asked this question to Professor Vigda those days, and he said, the agony in the mind is so deep, they refuses to register. And even if it is there, there's so much denial and there's so much fear. And there's so much fear that it just doesn't. And also he said that they believe that miracles can happen and it may just vanish one day and they will be much better. So I was very clear, thoda clear. And when me and Abhijit sat down, he's an MSW and I'm a psychiatrist, we became great friends. And I said, psychoeducation is something which will actually happen in this group. Then I said, these patients need support. And support is such a simple word. It's not a very sexy word. It's not psychotherapy, but they need support. And I said that they sometimes need to manage each other in crisis. And instead of we getting calls that the patient is not taking medicine, he needs to be taken to hospital for bed, they would really help each other. So these were the small ideas which we had. And then we said that we'll start a support group on a Sunday, but have counseling across the 6 days for families suffering from patients, for 7 families of patients suffering from schizophrenia. And then when the first patient, in the first group I was present, and then I found that there's a distinct difference between what they talk in your clinic and what they talk in your group. In the clinic, they talk about medicines, thoda आवाज कम हुआ है, थोड़ा और तकलीफ अभी कम हुआ है, अभी नींद थोड़ा कम हुआ है. And when this, and there is a hierarchy there's a power hierarchy in the clinic. They consider you to be the God and they are the patient. In a support group setting, the hierarchy breaks and you're all equal. Empowerment of the patient happens and they ask different questions. And then they start talking about dynamics of the family. पर तुम इतना हमको टाइम नहीं दिया सर इन द क्लिनिक, तो मैंने कहा इसीलिए तो हमने सपोर्ट ग्रुप स्टार्ट किया. And that is the most important cause for starting Maitri at that point of time. And in this entire thing, what was happening is, in the support group, empowerment happens, ground is horizontal, and people are free to talk what they actually want to. Now, we did not know how to start the group and what structure it should have. And we just started by simple psychoeducation, which is also very difficult. All the doctors here who are listening, my young friends, young psychiatrists, psychoeducation is not about information. Psychoeducation is changing beliefs, changing myths. And myths don't change overnight. They might take a generation to change when it comes to all the myths of mental health. So what happens is, when the myths leak from the mind, it provides space for the science to enter. And that, I think, is very important for us to understand. Science needs space inside the mind. So when the myths leak, science enters. And what is very important at that point of time is, it needs a lot of wiring, which takes a long time. So what we found across at least 15 years was that there were 5 benefits of the support group. Those who attended the support group meetings were more compliant than the rest. They did not stop drugs suddenly. It's so difficult for patients to continue medication. And you all know that all over the world, non-compliance is the most important reason for a relapse. Second is, relapses came down. Third is, quality of life was much better. Fourth is, I do not remember any patient who has been coming to the support group for dying of suicide. There were attempts of suicide, but nobody died of suicide. And the last one was, quality of work also improved. The work efficiency was much better. And what were the different aspects of the support group? Initially, we would call everybody "tum sab aao," and some people would say "humko nahi aane ka." And we found those who did not come, or those who came and dropped out, were those who were doing well. They were functioning well. They had enough support at home, and they did not feel like having a support which was external and which was periodic. So we believe that the rotating door philosophy is the best philosophy. Aao, sikho, jao. And those who stuck to the group were those who had less support, who had more psychopathology, who had no jobs, and who had chronic symptoms or higher symptoms than those who actually did not come. In the support group meetings, we were very careful that we did not keep we kept the gender separate. When it comes to the patients, when it came to the families, we were all together. The patient support group was different, and the family support group was, family meetings were extremely different. So as we move, it's not an easy thing. In the support group, what also became was that familiarity would breed contempt. They would make more demand. It's just like Indian families. When one son or one daughter is taking care of the entire family, and the second son, the second daughter would not take care, the family will always blame the person who's actually involved in the care of the parents. Family would ignore others who would not care. They say, "Uska to swabhav hi aisa hai, usne kabhi dekha hi nahi." So it became a family. It became a pseudo family. The demands were higher, and also what we also saw, that a lot of expectations. So as Anjali said, that we are Indians. We can't draw lines like Americans. Nahi, hamara aisa hi hona chahiye. It's difficult. So that was one thing which was not easy to handle. As we began, the males and females we found had different problems. The patients who were girls were not comfortable to share their psychological issues, their stressors, their other hassles about their life in front of the boys. And so we had to separate. Also, boys started falling in love with girls started falling in love with boys. It was very difficult to handle when you are taking a Largaptil, Escazine or Pacitine in those days. And so we had to have separate groups for boys and girls. At the same time, handing over the entire patient from one psychologist to the other. I had till now I had 8 psychologists and MSWs, more MSWs than psychologists. I find MSWs more adept and more practical, more creative, and they have more experience in managing groups than psychologists. And in their course at TISS or any other place, their group activities are much more than that among the psychologists. So what used to happen in the group? Well, as group started, we looked at 4 things. One is that helping them, finding tools to manage stressors in day-to-day life, managing expressed emotions in the family, managing communication inside the family, and also managing the stressors in the parents, and also bringing down the burnout. A lot of activities. In fact, one of the most important thing is patients suffering from schizophrenia with a heavy burden of disease had very little socialization. And so socialization was also a part which we also took care. My counselor or my MSW would take them for movies. They would go for movies, they would go for picnics, they would go for walk on the beaches. And they would also have a lot of activities along with other NGOs where sports were involved, or where they would actually manufacture things and sell. So a lot of activities started intuitively, and slowly we started understanding what are the things we could do and what are the things we could not do. One mistake we made was we never attempted to lower the expectations, or help the families to have expectations which are lower, and we were not good enough to say that this is what we can do and this is what we cannot do. So some got upset and left us. हमको तो ये इससे कोई फायदा नहीं होता है, and perfectly all right, and that I think was very, very good. No issues at all. As we were doing our support groups on these patients, as we conducted a support group for these patients, a lot of MSW said psychiatrists should not start any support groups. It should be started by the families only. But one thing I found during our time, there was another support group which started. But what happened was the families of patients who suffer from schizophrenia are also, some of them are schizophrenic. And what used to happen is they structured their NGO. Some became president, some became vice president, and a lot of hierarchies actually ruined the activity of that NGO. So I kept myself behind and let the counselor or the MSW to run the show. I was present only when there was crisis intervention, and I was also present in the policy meeting if required, if something had to be done in an emergency. We had a lot of adverse reactions to support groups. Remember, drugs have adverse reactions. Support group also has adverse reactions. And one of the most adverse reaction was intolerance of the families of patients suffering from schizophrenia to other families who had same schizophrenia. The families who joined earlier were a little more empowered. They understood the illness much better. They knew the definition of the illness, and they knew so many other aspects of the illness. And when a new entrant would come and they say, "Ye olanzapine ka jo hai na goli, usme weight kyun badhta hai?" And these senior relatives would say, "Shut up, we know all this. Itna bhi nahi malum hai." So intolerance of the close members of the family who had joined earlier towards those who had joined later is one adverse effect of a support group, and there managing the balance is extremely important. The second most important adverse effect is suddenly they would say, "हमको हरी शेट्टी के पास जाने का." They would be going to some other psychiatrist and say, "अरे हरी शेट्टी कितना अच्छा group चालू किया." I said, "No, don't. We know this illness has humbled us across life, and we know the limitations of treating this illness." And suddenly they would want to go to some other psychiatrist whom they have heard about. The third most important adverse reaction was that in a group meeting, there would be a lot of people who had different views about how a patient should be treated in the family. Slowly, the senior members would start behaving like psychiatrists instead of being a family member. And when they would come and share in public, initially when they share in the first two meetings in public, they would say, my family, this schizophrenia, all this happened, and then we give the medicine. Now my son is better, I'm attending to it. But then slowly after some time, they said this medicine is better than that medicine we have experienced. So they started really behaving like psychiatrists. Secondly, also, the senior members who had patients who were treated and who were quite stable were very intolerant to the pain and the agony of the patients who came later, who had still not settled, or the symptoms had not abated, and there was a lot of conflict. So how did we handle the conflict? We formed 3-4 groups, which means one was an advocacy group, And I would share this very proudly. The second was the job group, finding jobs, in the sense that if a job is found, then my psychologist and one member of the family would go and talk to the HR of the person, and he would explain to the HR what is the illness, how much, what could he do in the job, what are the interactions that he can manage, what are the interactions he cannot manage, how should others actually behave. We could find jobs for very few people. Axis Bank then gave jobs for 2 of our patients in their library. And the HR and the in charge of the Axis Bank was one lady who stood for elections for AAP, and then she passed away with cancer. And then when she left the bank, a new HR came and they phoned me up and said, Harish Shetty, Abhi, we don't want your mentally ill patients in our bank. Actually, the person who appointed them has now left, and please take them away. I had to fight hard to keep them there for a long time. And so while doing all this, sensitizing the HRs of so many other companies also happened, though it's a very tall order. Finding jobs for mentally ill patients is very tough. Finding jobs for anybody else is very tough. So that is one part. The advocacy part I would like to share was we were responsible for that famous petition in the High Court. We went to Supreme Court, Edward Dicuna versus Shipping Corporation of India. Edward Dicuna was a sailor who suddenly had hallucinations on the ship, and he was thrown out by the Shipping Corporation of India, and we filed a case, and after 16 years, he was compensated, and many guidelines were formed by the High Court. They went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court threw the petition of the Shipping Corporation of India, and Edward joined back to the job, and this is a landmark petition which we were involved in, and I'm very proud to share that this happened. Other adverse reaction, remember, it's not easy. Reactions of a pill and adverse reactions of a group is also important. Suddenly, somebody would say, तुम्हारा ग्रुप से वो ग्रुप अच्छा है, हमारा निर्मला श्रीनिवासन ग्रुप बैंगलोर में उससे मैं बोला उधर जाओ, no problem. I would always say we don't have all the answers. It's very difficult to run a support group. We don't have all the answers. But one thing we did not change the date of the support group. Come what may, on that date, whatever happens, rain or sun or hailstorm, the meeting has to happen. Even there are 2 people. And that was something which we continued for a very long time. Actually, when I look back, I think a lot of things have changed as of now in the understanding of support groups. It is very difficult for people to physically meet, even after COVID, by the way, forget COVID. In Mumbai, for people to physically meet after a job for a support group on a day when they are free is difficult because of logistics, because of travel, because of so many other things. And so which is why the frequency of meetings also went down. And then we are now thinking of revamping the support group online, on WhatsApp, and so many other forums. The second most important thing is globalization. A lot of people work for 16 hours and 18 hours in the offices. And as their parents, they can't bunk their office to come to a support group. They find it very difficult. At the same time, the helplessness is also very huge. And the helplessness actually of patients suffering from schizophrenia and major mental illness is huge, because the number of family members helping them has gone down. Most of them are in nuclear families, and a lot of financial outlays are important. A lot of people find medications also very expensive. So if I had to start a support group all over again, what I would do? I would start an online support group. I would also find money for those who need medication. And I would try and access people who have a maximum disability and those who need the support group. I would not encourage everybody to join the support group. So 5 lessons what I've learned is, as you start a support group, see that you use it for those who need and don't open it up for everybody. Number 2, also see to it that the psychologists and the counselors are protected, because at times there was a lot of abuse the psychologists face and the counselor face from families and from patients. It is very rare, but it needs only one member of the family, or it needs one patient to wreck the mental health of a psychologist or a counselor. 3, I would want to ally with NGOs who have a lot of space and who don't know what to do, and they have a lot of money to actually fund these activities, because these activities need a lot of money. And the 4th most important thing is, there's a lot of money in many schemes of the government which we were not able to tap because we were not good at it and we were not. And the last is, let the families, and the last is that don't do it alone. 3 or 4 psychiatrists should do it together. As I slowly stop, I would ask every psychiatrist, when I spoke to Alim said, "Kyun karna chahiye support group? Aap batao." Maine kaha, boss, we treat symptoms with medication, but if we treat life, the chances of that symptoms recurring is less. If you treat life, the chances that they would relapse is less. If you treat life, probably you will affect their quality of life. Probably you also affect their interpersonal relationship inside the family, and probably you might have a better recovery than those who are left alone. I am a little angry and upset with the preoccupation of the brain, the biochemistry and the medication, the time spent on that. They are very important and you need to actually spend time. But it's also important, young psychiatrists, all these young boys and girls have a car, have a house and a clinic, most of them. If you do not get a psychologist or a psychotherapist or an MSW, start a support group with a senior family member who's sensitive. Start a support group with a simple counselor who has a heart, and then from there you can take off. 3 or 4 psychiatrists who are practicing in one area can start one common support group. And remember, there's no competition. When you have one support group, everybody's practice will actually increase. At the end, I would like to say, support groups should be a part of our work. And in your clinic, you don't treat life, you treat symptoms. In support groups, you treat life. I have another support group of singles which runs only on WhatsApp. I have started it, but I'm no longer there, and they take care of each other. I'll share one example what happened. One senior corporate honcho wanted to jump down from the building, and the people who helped them were the people in the support group of singles. They ran, helped her, and brought her back. A lot of small issues of patients suffering from schizophrenia get resolved in the support group. A lot of small issues of people who are single gets resolved in the support group. So ultimately, the load of the psychiatrist actually goes down and a lot of help reaches the patient. With this, I thank IPS for inviting me. I thank Torrent for really funding this beautiful program. And I would keep my phones open for all psychiatrists across the country who would want to start a support group. Free advice, free support, and also free friendship, so that we can all do a little more for our patients. Thank you.
I'm just going to add a little bit over here. Okay, so what Dr. Shetty shared just now so beautifully was his experience with a support group for patients of schizophrenia, and he was also running a support group for relatives of schizophrenia. Okay, what I have also been experimenting with, since he was doing schizophrenia, I did not want to start another group. In fact, I would send, all the patients and the relatives there, and of course, as he said, they probably wanted to go to him for treatment and he sent them back. But what I did was I started different support groups, say for depression, people suffering from depression, a support group for caregivers, because we all know what caregivers go through, personality disorders, and we tried different things with them. We had a support group where we tried psychodrama with them for 7 to 8 sessions. It was a learning experience, and of course we all learn, but if you do not start, you will never know. When we started, even we did not know what's going to happen. And I would often call him up and say, "Oh, this is happening now. What do I do now?" And we would share experiences. Our single again group, of course, there were issues that happened with that. One support group which I started 13 years ago was for a group of geriatric geriatric people in our area, senior citizens. And that group today has 300 members. In fact, one of the activities that we are doing now is, of course, trying to get them vaccinated. And what they are doing, how they are supporting us, is by being there for each other. We have 10 WhatsApp groups of these senior citizens, We started they used to meet in a clinic, and those meetings have now become online. In fact, in the last 1 year, they've all supported each other through COVID, through, we've had competitions for them. And, it's been a real learning experience. And I would just like to add one thing to what Dr. Shetty said, that, many a times, a lot of psychiatrists, even I used to feel, oh my God, how am I going to handle these people alone? And I remember Dr. Shetty telling me that, get some of the volunteers who are enthusiastic. And that is what really helped. Of course, till the time they understand your way of thinking, it is then these volunteers lead the groups themselves, and that I have seen has really helped. The grief support group, the bereavement support group that we have announced now, we actually started it because one of my friends who lost his wife to cancer, when he came for therapy, he said that, I wish someone had spoken to us about what happens, because we've all, my wife passed away, but we have all left with so much guilt. We are all, the family broke with her passing away. I wish we had support groups for that. And that's how we started the first bereavement group. And then COVID happened. And then we decided to take it up for bereavement. We are also working currently at setting up teenage groups, because, teenagers are really going through a lot of issues at the moment, and also one for the preteen groups. And yes, psychiatrists don't have to do everything. We probably need to lead, we probably need to lay the rules, and we need to get other mental health professionals along with us. We cannot live in a fort and say, oh, we're alone and we are the best. We need to work with other professionals. And with this, I think there are a lot of questions. Let's open it up for questions.
I'd like to hand it over to the moderators to take the questions, please.
Thank you. Alim. Okay. There's an interesting comment on the first part of the chat, where Talha Samim has told that, just a suggestion, can we rehearse how it is to be done at the end of the session? Maybe we can all join and participate.
Okay, so we mean कि हमारे जो speakers हैं, they'll treat us as a group and
yes. We can, and then questions can arise out of it. Are you game for it, madam?
Depends on how many people and what is the goal of the.
It's just a prototype.
Okay.
It is just
Sure,
how it is
sure.
done.
we have 200 people. Most
Yeah.
all of them are mental health professionals. And suppose they are having problem.
I think how to start a support group should be the.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. How do we go ahead from here?
Yes.
Sure. We can do that.
So do it at the end, or Alim will.
I think now only.
Yeah.
Let's see what. I think there are some questions which are there if you want, or we can just discuss how do we go ahead.
Yes, madam. I think some of the questions are answered.
Okay. So my aim today is that, what we are seeing today, every day, all of us are so upset listening to stories of families, dying. So I would definitely like to, start off, and we've already announced a group which is beginning next week with a bereavement group. Our bereavement groups are actually, 8 sessions long, where we are using the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's model of grief and loss, and every time we take up one of the 6 first of all, what happened, the shock part of it, and we allow people to talk about it and allow them to tell their stories. Now what happens is, in something like that, what we need to do is give people equal time to talk, see that nobody else is dominating. So it's good to have at least 2 observers. If one person is talking, there has to be someone else who's an observer. Now, in online groups, it's important that we also tell people is that please have a good internet connection because we want to see your face. As psychiatrists, we like to see the face of people. And, as people are sharing, as people are talking about their emotions, the other psychologist or mental health professional is also kind of helping them. Sometimes we've also had to help them one-on-one. So if people become really emotional, we request them to leave the group, and we get the psychologist to help them and bring them back onto the group. So this has been our experience with the grief groups. And the reason I'm discussing that is because I would really want, if all of us can start, we all talk about there being stigma of mental health. But if we go out there and if we are talking to people, why will people not want to come to us? And why will they not want to take medication? At such a time, even
Can I
if people, sure, go ahead, Harish.
See, the challenge today for all of us, Aleem and everybody here, is escalation. Do we give high skilled grieving for a small number of people, or we look at 75,000 people who have died in COVID in Maharashtra and form a team across Maharashtra and provide them simple grief counseling? We have read the book on death and dying by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, very good book, but a large number of people need it. And therein comes the role of IPS or West Zone IPS. Are we able to get together a team of social workers, psychologists, counselors, Nirmala Niketan, TISS, the Social Work Institute in Pune and others, and get a team of say 1,000 mental health professionals who could do simple grief counseling? Psychiatrists have never been able to influence policy and escalate and do something big. Pediatricians have been able to do it. They supported, they brought in the polio vaccine. We are not able to do it. Time has come to think big and look at 70,000. In fact, I would like to share that I have given a plan of action to the Prime Minister, to Niti Aayog, to the State Health Minister. And honestly, if they do not do anything about the mental health pandemic and not reach out, I would just share in 30 seconds. You tell me, guys, in the epidemic, the people who have died because of want of oxygen, want of bed, and want of beds outside the hospital, you tell me, guys, whether the close members of the family will ever be normal unless you intervene. So I think IPS should think big, get a large number of people, and if they do not accept this idea of the mental professional, I'm going to file a PIL for the state to also pitch in and with everybody else to see that at least in this disaster there is serious mental health intervention. We tried during the past disasters. They all believed that building houses in Latur was the best option. Mental health can wait. I still remember WP Sidhu saying time is the best healer. And I stopped him in that meeting. I told him, if the fan falls on your head and your skull is losing, will you say the time is the best healer? We have wasted a lot of time. This pandemic is an opportunity for mental health professionals to escalate and see that mental health reaches the poorest of the poor and across the state and across the country. I'm sorry, I'm talking out of my hat, but these are the views I have. And I'll tell you, if they don't do it, I'll file a PIL in the High Court.
Sure. Absolutely.
Anjali, why don't you also think that all of us, if we can form a loose group and actually look at, see, if you track 75,000 people who died in Maharashtra, we'll look at Maharashtra as an example, as a pilot. We will not be able to reach everybody, but we'll be able to reach around 25,000 people. And if 1,000 people from a counselor to a therapist, but we provide only grief counseling. If 25 families are given to one person to follow for 6 months or 1 year, I think we should shed this 8-session, 4-session, 12-session business. Let's not get Americanized. Let's Indianize based on our culture. And Anjali, think big. Let's go out across for a large number of people. Let's escalate. That is the philosophy for today. Let's escalate.
I'm with you, lead. So why don't we do one thing? We still have time. Let's discuss how we are going to take this forward.
Sorry to intervene here because we are talking about this, and regarding the grief counseling thing, I think Dr. Anjali and I just had a word today evening.
Yes.
That sir was talking about the IPS kind of, wanting to join hands. So the IPS NGO subcommittee has kind of we've given a go ahead to join with Dr. Anjali and Dr. Anand Parihar's group, and we're going to reach out all across the country to different states where we can kind of, carry out grief counseling in the language of the people. So,
Yes.
yeah, so the IPS is already kind of, I think, we're joining hands with the grief committee to kind of, escalate this grief counseling process.
No, I think I also understand where Dr. Shetty was coming from. These are the people who are coming to us. But I think we also need to probably reach out to the community, so there's going to be difference in people who are coming to us. But I mean,
Sure.
if we can reach out to the community, that would be really something, Dr. Shetty is
there-
back.
Yeah,
Now
just-
there is a good thing that people are initiative and they have good idea, and definitely we can follow. And I request Alim if he can arrange something to formalize it later, secondly, whatever. This is a good idea, and his what is called, he has a very lens vision in all this issue. He has a lens vision. He can see very macro thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we expect our youngsters, particularly Alim, may formalize later on, and we hope we have a good leader and we have good initiative, so we can do it.
Sure, sir. We'll try that, sir. We'll definitely try that. Coming to the topic again, sir and ma'am, we have around 200 people right now. So अगर इनका मुझे group बनाना होगा, what do I do? How do I start? I have collected 200 people on this platform. So now we need a group. The theme of the group is how to start a support group. This is my problem. This is a common problem of 200 people. तो कैसे शुरू करें हम? Sir.
Alim, can I speak?
Sure, sir.
Okay, I think we can look at 5 things immediately. The basic 1 page of how to start a support group. That's number 1. Number 2 is what are the issues which might come up in the support group which you need to resolve, problems. Number 3, ethics of the support group, which is also very important. Number 4, crisis intervention skills for support group, because a lot of crises get resolved inside the support group. And number 5, research outcome of the activity across 1 year. Is there something which we can learn in 1 year? What are the learnings in your support group? And let all the psychiatrists start small, very, very small. There's no need to start here. Anjali is capable of starting 100 groups. वो 100 ग्रुप्स में साल एक्टिव है, वो इसको बोलता है ये करो उसका, सब लोग उसका सुनते, अपना कोई सुनता नहीं है. हम चिल्ला के अपना जिंदगी निकल गया, कोई सुनता नहीं. So at least each psychiatrist can start a small support group, whatever he or she likes. Some people want to start OCD support group, the toughest. I tried, I failed. Some people want to start a support group for married couples. Why not? It's the taste of the psychiatrist or the psychologist which will define what support group you or she start. Let us support them in terms of experience of the past, which they can learn from. Back them with respect to. They also need to actually be connected with others. As you said, the 220. And third is document what they do so that those learnings can be shared in the next Thursday musings after a year.
Sir, how much floor space would be needed? कितनी जगह चाहिए मेरे को?
बिल्कुल जगह
नहीं,
नहीं चाहिए.
नहीं,
अभी तो ऑनलाइन है ना. If you
no. Even if you open up, Anjali, even if you open up, I started it in my clinic. Then it went to somebody's terrace. Then the families take over and find a place. सब कुछ अपने दिमाग में लेने का नहीं. अंजलि जैसा, तू ये कर, तू वो कर, तू जगह ढूंढ, तू पैसा ढूंढ, तू ये कर, वो कर. So the place is not a big thing. I had a place, a small place before, and at least 30 people would easily come in. And in a support group, when there are 25 to 30, the interactions are better. If the support group is much bigger, the interactions are not much better. It's not the space; it's the idea. Space will follow the idea, and people will find the space.
Can we take to a public park?
Sorry, I didn't
Can-
understand.
Can we take to a public space, public park?
Of course, why not?
Anywhere which is safe.
Okay.
Which is
Now,
safe.
my apprehension is people will start fighting.
Temple, mosque. Alim, one sec. In Egypt, Professor Vig would say, they started this in their mosques. In Parla, we started in a temple. They said, Hamara jaga use karo. So, but one thing, the space has to be fixed so that it will not change often. And we need to mix it with online as well as offline now, because offline is very difficult all the time in metros. In small places, it may be easily manageable. What do you think, Cheryl?
Yes, I agree with you.
It's tough in the city to travel, no? Bombay,
Yes.
very, very tough.
So Anjali ma'am, if we have 200 big shots of psychiatry, now the problem comes कि दो बड़ा चार बड़ा लोग जो they form subgroups and they start fighting. Mostly, if I give example of live CME group also. So how do we sort it?
That's exactly why we need to first respect others, And today, let me tell you this has happened today. In the morning, we were talking about mucormycosis, okay, and we had some information in English. It was thanks to our support group, which we have, that someone is a Hindi teacher. I just told her, can you translate this? And we'll correct it. Somebody knows Marathi well. Now, when you have a good group and you are able to respect everybody, of course, there will be mischief makers. And life teaches you to ignore the mischief makers, to even deal with them sternly if required. But if you respect other people and understand that there's a role for everybody in life, I'm sure we can do a lot, because there's that much that I can do, there's that much that Dr. Shetty can do, there's that much that you can do. But when people come together, 1 and 1 becomes 11. And allow people to make mistakes. Why do we have to become obsessive and say, "Arey, aisa nahi hone ka, waisa nahi hone ka"?
That's a human trait, darling. That's a human trait. But I'll just share one thing, Alim, if you like, if you can allow me. Alim, our friend V.S. Naipaul, you know him, no? He once said that Indians don't cast their shadow and they would want to work in somebody else's shadow. But things are changing. Let's look at Nasik. Punk Foundation is a group of psychiatrists and psychologists working beautifully. So there are small groups which are working beautifully as groups. We have slowly started to work as a team. Indians have started to work as a team in different areas. So across the country, say for example, in Gujarat, there's a team. There are 3 teams who are very close friends, psychiatrists. So where the teams are harmonious, I would say every psychiatrist should not take up the responsibility. If you can't, if there are 3 or 4 psychiatrists in that area, take up that responsibility, and they're great friends. It's going to really rock. Everybody may not be able to start a support group, but even if it starts 10 to 20 across the country, and in a year's time, we'll know what happens. And in a year's time, the musings, they will be the speakers and we will be the listeners. So Indians are now casting their shadow. Teams have come up in different aspects of life in India. So I have faith in our psychiatrists also. And as Anjali said, there are people who can work together. In our hospital, Cheryl, me, Austin, Jyoti, and Surbhi, we work together. Every meeting we have, we are all 5 speakers. Am I right, Cheryl? So which is how it is.
I just want to add one more thing over here is that, we are also complaining that people are not recognizing, other doctors are not recognizing psychiatric disorders. Why is that? Because we have failed to tell them the importance of psychiatry. So tomorrow, if you suggest to your friend who's a diabetologist that, okay, I want to have, now just look at diabetes as a group. Don't you think that people suffering from diabetes should have a support group? And don't you think a psychologist or a psychiatrist should be there? You know, the minute you go there and the minute you start picking up their depressions and their anxieties and show them a way out, you know, even if they need to take some medication or to alter their lifestyles, they are going to follow you. They are going to take whatever medicine that you tell them to take. You know, but we need to be out with them. You know, our bereavement group started because of cancer, right? Today, don't you think that the people who have learned over there will say, okay, you know what, this person is suffering from depression, this is mental illness, please refer him to a psychiatrist, because psychiatrists today have to destigmatize you know, their branch. We can't expect people to get up and say, okay, oh my God, you know, these are the best guys on earth. We have to prove it to them. So we can actually start a support group for anything and everything, you know.
I will put a page down, Alim. I'll put a page down how to start a support group in a week's time.
Sir.
Okay.
One page.
Great. Sir, Amrit.
So basically the suggestions have been very, very good, because now we are, sir, the IPS, on behalf of the IPS, if I'm allowed to speak something, I'll tell that we are forming a national suicide helpline, along with a helpline for, you know, the psychological issues which, you know, we are having a. So can we integrate everything now? Suppose we have a single number and we have places, you know, we have doctors, like you told, psychiatrists from all over the country. Around 700, 800 people who have volunteered free of cost. We are also trying to build a, you know, training module for, you know, how to address people who are acutely suicidal, you know, crisis intervention. We're talking about crisis intervention. And then I think it's a very, very important part, the grief intervention. And every day in my clinic, I see 5 people who have lost somebody in the pandemic, who are coming actually. You know, families have been, you know, father has died, son has died, mother has died, son has died, you know, and there are multiple, you know, bereavements in the family. It's not just a single death. So the whole family system has been devastated. And actually that's why
Amrit, can I just interrupt you here?
Yes,
what I would suggest is, if you ask these 5, either the 5, you know, husbands to come together or the 5 kids to come together, okay, and just allow them to talk.
That's where I'm coming to, madam.
Yes.
So if you can help us, you know, like sir was telling, we come with a page, come with a module, you know, and then we can just discuss all these things. We can always tell people, you know, people want to do, but they don't know where to go, how to go. The direction is important. It is not that there is intent is not there. There are a lot of people who have come here who have a lot of intent, but there is no direction, there is no guidance, that they didn't understand. They don't understand whether it can be made relevant, whether it can persist. You know, forming a group is one thing, maintaining, like Dr. Harish told, the certain guidelines. So if we can come out with certain things, and maybe we can make 4 or 5 senior people into it, I think everybody will look up to doing these things. This will actually improve our efficacy in terms of treatment. You know, the compliance or the adherence will also improve. So it's a win-win situation everywhere. So if you can just tell us how to do it, maybe you can give us a paper. We can always carry it forward and also amalgamate it with a helpline. That is what I would always tell.
Fantastic, Amrit. Can I take 1 minute? Sir, both दिन से मेरे को इधर बुलाया ने lecture के लिए. मैं बोलो.
अभी मोदी जी से बात करके आए होंगे. अभी मोदी जी से बात करके आए होंगे.
I think Suhasini has made a very interesting comment that mindfulness is very important. Mustafa has said that culturally sensitive and spiritual therapies are important. I think they are brilliant. Iti has asked Anjali, you, not me, how the hell you take care of your mental health? तुम लोग दिमाग को कैसा संभालते? अच्छा क्वेश्चन.
We talk to each other. We talk to each other and we use these. No, but I think it's very important that, you know what, first of all, I would like to tell people over here is, see, don't be scared of failure. Just start. When your intention is to help people, that intent is going to come across.
Absolutely.
And do not feel that, you know, ये गलत हो जाएगा तो क्या होगा, ये ग्रुप बंद हो जाएगा तो क्या होगा. कुछ नहीं होगा. You know, start. There will be problems, but if we do not start, we will never know what the problems are going to be.
I agree completely. Beautifully said, Anjali.
So be proactive.
So somebody has put a suggestion, like, can we have a, like Alim was telling, a support group for people who want to open support groups? That's a very important suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
Yeah.
Amrit, you watch all the good things on the chat box. I think it's a good idea. One Zoom meeting. For that, all the guys who want to start support groups should come with ideas, come with their
Exactly.
own plans, come
Yeah.
with their own choices, and then we can learn from each other. Who are we to teach anybody? We can actually share and learn from each other. There's so much wisdom in this room. 167 guys, all of them are wise. Each one would give something new, and we'll all learn from each other.
Sir, actually, what I found is this support group, voice is reading for at least decades, and till now there is no formal this thing. Probably the current office bearer we believe that they may do something. Otherwise, it will go next few decades. Just discussion and things will be over. So I humbly request office bearers who are there in this group to formalize to a material level so that anything can be done.
I will share a page which you can all sit and correct, add or delete, and have a rough framework. We may not have a rough module, we may have a rough framework. And in that framework, people can put meat as and how they feel is essential in their environment and for their disease. I think that we need to start, and as Dr. Ram said, ये गप्पा मारेंगे जाएंगे, 100 लोग जो है 200 लोग है, उसमें से 20 लोग तो पक्का मोटिवेटेड है स्टार्ट करने में, तो 20 हुई तो बहुत हो गया.
Sir, next Thursday, in our Thursday musing, we'll share the paper you'll share with us.
Definitely, sir.
That's a promise we make to the Thursday
आज
musing.
क्या डेट है? नहीं, आज क्या डेट है?
13th.
20 तारीख को, ठीक है ना, कोई बात, कौनो बात नहीं.
The evening we'll share it here in our chat box.
Definitely, sir. And not share, we'll discuss it also. If you give us time.
Yes. Dr. Sheshadri sir will be there. It will be a good thing, sir.
Or we can send it across 2 days prior so that everybody reads it.
Yeah, we have a mail, sir. We have mail of all our viewers. We'll send it to. We'll mail it to everybody, sir.
I'll send it to Alim and Amrit and Cheryl and Mr. Ram, and you all see what to do.
Yes.
Sir, there is a question in the chat box, legal aspects. So I'll add financial and legal aspects. So what are the financial aspects? What are the legal aspects of starting a group, maintaining a group, and have you ever suffered in this way?
Well, a senior psychiatrist asked me, Harish, तेरे को इसमें पैसा कितना मिलता है? I said, पैसा मैं आराम से कमाता हूँ. This is my love for the field of which has given me so much. There is no fees at all. It's free of cost. That's what I said. And legally, I never went into this contract like Watwani used to give ECTs and say God has signed the consent. I've been practicing that model till now. But when you are younger, you need to be a little more careful. And but if you get into too much contract, the rapport between you and the patient is not there. So then there has to be a lot of faith and less of law, and then we can work. Ultimately, when you do a lot of things out of love and science and good science, the palm tree justice will stand for you.
So there's a question for Anjali, madam.
Sure.
I've been running a grief support group for the past 2 years with the online model now.
Mhm.
So in the online model, what are the do's and don'ts, especially for on grief? So is there any tweaking you have to do when you're doing an online model in terms
No.
of do's and don'ts?
So as I said, first of all, we need to understand who are the people joining, because if it is people for example, if you start a support group, these are people who are coming to you. You already know them. But maybe if you're just starting a group with people you do not know, maybe the person has to first understand who they are, so you're a little more sensitive. The second thing is, in online, we are just requesting people to, we are not allowing people to record sessions because these are moments that people are sharing. So you do not want people to go out and, talk about someone else. So the privacy, clause and even confidentiality is explained to them. Okay. And otherwise, so far we have not had any problems. But of course, one has to be sensitive, especially when you're talking about grief. And I think if we all reach out to people and we start these groups, there are so many people who've been affected. We will be able to make a difference, and maybe we're going to make leaders out of them. So many kids have been orphaned. Why don't we pick up these kids in our areas and start getting them together, and helping them? Of course, one really has to be careful about if someone talks about suicide. I would be worried about a person who has either shown a lot of emotion in a group, and maybe someone can just follow up with the person. And that is why it's important that we have at least 2 or 3 people, so that people can take care of each other.
So recording should not be allowed, madam.
Yeah,
Never,
yeah, we
never,
do not.
never.
Now,
We
there are
don't
a lot of
allow
softwares.
recording.
There are a lot of
Yeah.
softwares available where somebody can record it, madam.
No, it's an offense.
Exactly. So, for the online groups, what we have taken consent, because, when people are meeting informally or in our other groups, we have never taken any consent. But because this is an online group, and we've also, the other rule that we started, with this bereavement group was, we said that let 2 members of the same family not be in the same group. So we divided them into different groups so that we felt that both would, benefit. So these are basically just the rules that we kind of have started off with, and we are looking for partners in other languages, and that's what Cheryl was talking about. So definitely we want to make sure, we want to both let Dr. Shetty lead where the macro is concerned. We are there with you, Dr. Shetty. Please tell us what to do.
No, macro, macro.
At
Unless
the
you
same
do,
time,
Anjali, unless you do micro, you can't do macro. Otherwise, you will be an epidemiologist. So, so I understand, but I think too many rules के पीछे जाएंगे तो तुम साला group start ही नहीं करेगा.
exactly. Right.
अपना कपड़ा कैसे बचाने का ऐसे करते करते कुछ नहीं करोगे तुम यार. So I think what Anjali said about grief, starting grief, those points are very, very important and very, very valid. Start somewhere. Start a group of 5 people, OCD. Start a group of 5 gay people, if you like. Start something which you like in your field, your area of interest. Don't think about क्या होएगा कोर्ट में जाएगा कंज्यूमर कोर्ट. यार ऊपर वाला खड़ा है ना यार. अच्छे कर्म में लोग साथ देंगे तुम्हारे. इतना paranoid हो कि you can't start. I still remember I went for a forum, no? Forum. So half a day they said, this is the contract, that is the contract. I walked out. I said, इतना contract करके तुम क्या सिखाएगा क्या तुम अपने को? मैं निकल गया. मैं बोला तेरा contract तू रख अपने आप, मैं अपने आप सीखेगा. But we need to be careful.
Suppose, madam, in 3 days or 4 days, I see 4 people who have lost somebody and have come. So I now decide that I have to start a support group for
Right.
this. So how do I recruit? What do I tell?
Nothing. Just keep it informally. Just tell these 4 people that, once we started a support group for parents of for borderline personality disorder. Okay. Now, at that time, what did we realize? There was a commonality. There was a commonality that all of them were suffering. And all I did was tell them that, I have these other people who are also in the same boat. Would you like to meet? In my clinic itself, I called these parents who were all feeling very embarrassed, By the end of it, they were teaching each other how to help their kids. So, so the intent is there. Your intent is good, that you want these people to not suffer. Yes, if you're calling children who have lost a parent, okay, and if there is one child who says that, I want to go and kill myself, now that is a situation that you will have to handle very delicately, and you cannot say that, oh, my 1 hour is over and chalo, we will meet next Thursday. Until then, we will not talk to each other. Maybe this could be a crisis, because if not handled well, there could be copycat suicides, there could be, one instigating the other, and there could be a parent gunning after you. So these are situations that we'll have to handle very, very delicately. And of course, if the kids are below 18, you may need a consent, because tomorrow, if something happens, the parent will come running after you. So we have to be a little conscious of these things. So start where you are comfortable. For example, if you're starting a support group with, say, 5 women who have, lost their husbands to COVID, make sure that there is a woman in the group from your side as well. we will also have to deal with transference issues that may come up. So these are the softer things that come up, and that is why it's important to not be the only one who is mediating the group. In fact, allowing other people to mediate while you are around.
Co-facilitators, as we say, it's very important.
Co-therapist or any-
Amrit,
Yes.
I need to address this beautiful question you said. Years ago, I hired a social worker, Preeti Batkande, to go and connect to families who have lost their children for suicide. It took her at least 2 months to reach out to 50 people. She went to their homes. Idea is to bring them together. It took 2-3 months, and she reached out to more than 120 people. 38 came, and we had this meeting in the Bombay University campus. The observations then were people were scared to come because of stigma. People were also scared to come because of avoidance, and the fact that they might start sharing things which they would not want to share in front of anonymous people. So when you start a support group, I still remember the day when 6 people came, parents came of suicide, those who have children who have committed suicide across 1 or 2 years, when there was a cluster suicide in Bombay. The one session was they did not talk, and they sat in silence across 1 hour. It's perfectly all right. Sitting in silence is also communication. In silence, we communicate. And if we are absolutely compassionate with those people, they come back again. So we need to go slow with respect to grief, handling grief, because all people are new and they don't know each other. And we immediately start, how do you feel after you've lost your husband? It doesn't work. Very gentle, very slow, eye-to-eye contact. You came from long. Did you get your vehicle, or you came by train? It was difficult. These are the small, non-intrusive things, neutral cues, which we need to start. And it might start only in the second, third session. It's perfectly all right. That, I think, is very, very important. We are very keen to see their tears, but they're not at our own pace. They're not at our own pace. They would want to do it in their time. So I think lot of patience, lot of peace, and lot of waiting helps these support groups to grow. In fact, IPS can do in Corona a research and intervention module where 10 of us can pick up 10 families, and easy to get 10 families from our own patients, and do a pilot and see how it works.
Aleem,
Cheryl, we have enough patients in our hospital who have lost. Cheryl and me, we can do 10 families at Pava Hiranandani. Aleem can do it in his college with his psychologist or whoever. Amrit can do it. So we can pick up 10 centers, 100 families across, say, 2-3 months, beyond the macro thing which we all need to do.
the issue in small town, madam, is like you talked about, if there are 5, ladies, and you need it has to be gender sensitive. Suppose I am a standalone practitioner in a small place where my psychologist goes from me to my competitor to another competitor. The same psychologist is circling Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we generally don't. So in these cases, what do? We don't have PSW. From my medical college was also getting a PSW is difficult.
No, don't worry. Even if you have a nurse who is around, okay. Yeah. And you know what? See, the whole idea is if you can make leaders from these groups. Okay. Just remember in 2008, when the Twin Towers fell, they were using animals for therapy. People were going and talking to dogs. Human beings at least have more compassion than dogs. That's actually a debatable sentence. But actually, so at that time, because they did not have enough people, they were using animals and they were talking. So are we trying to say that we do not have compassionate human beings? I'm sure we have. I'm sure your patients itself, you may have some, an aunt who is interested. But of course, the rules you are going to lay down, because you do not want people to go there and say, oh, my poor baby, you lost your mother. No. We have to respect. Respect is one of the first things that we have to learn, and 2 is allowing people to grieve, and 3 is even the people who've come together somewhere know why they've come together. when you just introduce them and say that, it's a very, very sad day today. And I was really very upset. I did not know how to help you all. So I thought, let's just all just sit over here today. Maybe we can start with a small prayer meet, and say that we are very sorry about what has happened, and allow them to talk. The minute people start talking, the minute they reach that point of helplessness and say, we do not know what to do, there will be someone. I will share something personally with you. When the second wave started, for the last 1 year, I have also been doing COVID related work. When the second wave started, our entire group, okay, we are 9 NGOs working together. Our entire group was feeling so horrible that day that we got on to a call. And, all of us were saying, oh my God, what are we going to do? And that was the day that Bombay, you couldn't find hospitals, when 20 doctors couldn't find one bed, and we were feeling really rotten. And we spoke and we shared. And it just took, there's one of our members who is a lion, he works with the lions. And he just turned around and he said, Anjali, tu aisi hai, to hum log ka kya hoga? That's all he had to say. Okay. You see, you're feeling so bad. You can't feel bad like that. Yeah. And I just turned around and said, yeah, okay, But what happened was we were all feeling bad when we all understood that we were feeling helpless and we were feeling horrible. And the next day we said, okay, chalo, now we just woke up with renewed vigor and we started working hard again. So there is a strange connection in support groups when you put people who have suffered with the same trauma, and they derive strength from each other. They derive strength and, and they start working together. But of course, you need to lead them. You need to take them towards a positive path. You need to sometimes, these support groups may become a little too mischievous, and you need to, this was happening to my single again group. I had widows and widowers, and sometimes we had to get them back and say, ki abhi bahut ho gaya, abhi masti band, chalo, now you have to help someone else, and these are people who've been with us for the last 20 years, and in COVID, they were our people who we reached out to, who were taking care of our senior citizens, giving them medicines, taking them for vaccines, etc., etc. So that was a merging of the support groups which happened.
Absolutely. One small experience, Alim, sorry, Alim, बहुत दिन के बाद मिला. थोड़ा 30 सेकंड allow करो. तुम Arnab, you are not Arnab and I am not whatever. I still remember in 1994, the first anniversary of the Latur disaster. We kept a Shraddhanjali Sabha. So what Amrit said is very beautiful. Culturally, we need to use very different words. And the Shraddhanjali Sabha, we wanted it to be secular, neutral. And we kept it under a tree, more than 18 villages. I was not alone, but there were others who were with me. We took a very neutral image of showering flowers under a tree, any tree which was there in the village. So we found that why people did not meet each other across 1 year, avoidance and the fear that they would all cry and they would all lose control. So avoidance in the Indian culture is also very, very big when it comes to grief. And that is so important for us to understand. Happy to say, Alim, that this group in our group now, there are psychologists who have worked with trauma. I mean, in the audience now, Aditi is one of them from Pune, and so many others. So I'm so happy that this is a multi-disciplinary group, which is very important in grief. Psychiatrists are not the people who have to do everything. As Anjali said, leadership was empowered ordinary people who can also do simple grief counseling. We in India, we cannot become Americans, and we don't need PhDs. We need a hierarchy which is there in Iran. Simple people can also do grief therapy. My mom can do. If she sits down in the village, she does grief therapy with people in the village at the age of 84. So I think we should. And as of now, I have lost a close family member. My 2 cousins are in ICCUs. So what did I do? I cried like a small child at the cremation. And I took my close member of the family to the cremation with my nephew. We were both crying. And this young nephew, 30-year-old, was patting me and consoling me. Me, at this point of time, I was consoling my nephew. So when we are human beings and we are absolutely human, grief counseling becomes very easy.
Very much, sir.
Alim, I would like to share.
Okay.
Am I allowed?
Yes, sir.
Sir, you are the boss.
No, no. I feel like sharing my experience because I was working after super cyclone with the worst flood affected cyclone affected village called Ersama. I worked there for 2 years. I was going there every month twice. And after some months, I had this observation that there are a distinct group who had different issues. That distinct group where the families where there was only one survivor. They did not have anyone. And they usually did not communicate. I did not have any idea of forming anything that would be called like a support group. But by the time 2 to 3 to 4 months, my volunteers in that village who helped me to organize and bring all the people. And I started the habit of having lunch with them every time I went, not separately in an aristocratic style. Anything was brought, we shared. The peasants gelled a little more. And this group, which I remember there are 47 people, both male and female. They did not communicate easily. But then I thought what would have become a support group by today's terms, that come at this hour for 1 hour, we'll discuss. And gradually found that they are taking over the discussion. So my first observation was, they did not come and they did not ventilate because they did not like to speak before others their agonies, their problems, their being heckled. Because a lone lady who has been totally lost all the family members was being heckled by the neighbor at that point of time. There are other issues. Government was giving a handsome amount of money in those days, around 1 lakh rupees, for every deceased person. So a lady who had 10 members expired in his family was going to get 10 lakh rupees. So there are other vultures who wanted to eye up in them and they are subjected to great stress. So I asked these volunteers that if they need further treatment, I went there for twice a month, but gradually found some people recovered and they gave solutions to them. And these group people became their own defenses against those. But it has been effective. But this thing of communication being, and it was not organized, and my psychotherapists were the volunteers who had learned so much of from my discussion with the patients over the first 2 to 3 months. Then I thought of this idea to have separate meeting of the people who are only survivors in the village, because there was no time for all the people, because I reached around 10 and I came around 6 o'clock. All throughout there are patients, there are groups of village leaders coming to discuss with me different things. And that was interesting. I believe these people where there is no psychotherapist or no social worker, the local people can be of help. But the whole thing is that utilizing these local people for help is a matter of mutual faith, as Harish told. It's a matter of mutual faith. If you make it a system, there may be someone raising a trouble at some point of time. But this has been effective. I summarily conclude it was effective. People were helped. And when I concluded after around 2 years, most of the people whom I had been seeing around 1 year or 1 year, 18 months ago, they were safely there, comfortable there. And there had been one case of suicide also, which I could not have, nobody could have spared. There was there. But you can't imagine the condition of the village when my car used to go through the bank of a canal, always susceptible to fall down. Still, I went there for 2 years. But this group, which was formed, not with the purpose of making a support group, but by purpose, I find it was a support group because we had the uniformed people. And they gradually, the thing was, they solved their problems. When the particular member of that group was threatened, the other persons came to support her and rescue her out of the issues. So this is my submission. It's a good idea. It can be taken up now. But about e-groups, I still have because in spite of the rule that you don't record, it can be recorded. Nobody will know that it is being recorded. as your findings are easy running, that may not run. It can be recorded. It
I-
can be
I-
recorded.
I agree with you. It has happened in my group, but then what can you do about it? Nobody can. No, see, people have recorded in our counseling sessions also. Husband and wife.
Exactly. Exactly.
But these are small aberrations. We'll handle it.
You have to ignore it from the outset itself.
And I think you said something very beautifully. The sensitivity of the group and the faith. I think beautifully said, Tufan. Beautifully said.
Yes, and it gradually grew. I did not have any intention of forming any support group. But R.S. Murthy, who had met me many times during that period, he had always told form a support group. I did not conceive the idea of practicing in Bhubaneswar for my sustenance and going to a place 90 kilometers away and to maintain a support group. What automatically evolved was a group of people whom I found that they're quite harassed in that lone, forlorn village with nothing, no electricity, nothing. I usually took everything for them, including blankets, and nothing for them. They isolated. I made a group of them. I wanted to talk to them. After 2 months, 3 months, they opened up, and what satisfied me most. For one example, there was a girl about 32 years old who did not have anyone in his family, and he got 12 lakh rupees compensation, and there is competition in the village to marry this widow. There's competition. There is rivalry. And what happened? These support group members rescued the girl. Once she was being forced to. So they saved her. I was nothing to do because I was going twice a week, and all the interim counseling was done by the persons who were volunteers to me. And they were self-styled volunteers who helped me, who introduced me. Initially went as a sophisticated psychiatrist from Bhubaneswar to work with them from 10 to 5. But gradually, when you take out these feelings, you find that this group are not talking. They came, they did not come, and they don't tell anything. And I have to come back because I can't be there in darkness. I came back by 5. So after that, I will give a special time to all these people. I ask them, you gather them, have lunch with them. Gradually, after some days, they opened up. They talked among themselves. And it was an experience I wanted to share with you because one should not be pessimistic. And these problems which Harish told us trivial, you have to ignore it from the outset. You have to expect it is being recorded. You have to monitor it like that. And it will be recorded, does not matter. You have to ignore. No agreement writing does not save that. That will happen.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So that was fantastic. You know, I mean, I think what I learned from that was that you entered the group, you know, and you made such a beautiful difference that you've changed the volunteers, and the volunteers, you empowered them to help so many people. You know, one more thing that, you know,
Anjali, just make a change. I did not have any, I had the intention of making them competent enough to bring the cases to me and explain them the medication counseling when I go away. They evolved by themselves. That was the need of the day. That was the need of the place. And I was just an instrument. I was just an instrument sent by the God. Nothing more than that. Absolutely. Because I did not refuse the word of support group, which was told to me by the university. But I can't go there. But it automatically evolved. It was quite thrilling. And unfortunately, I had records. I did not keep records. So without records, I'm sharing the experience and feelings of my heart with this group, which I think is empathic. Thank you. No more time, Alim.
One quick question, sir. One quick question.
Time up.
Frequency of group. पहले ज्यादा था, कम था, फिर ज्यादा किया था, क्या किया था? What is the usual frequency? Or people drop out होते हैं, तो what do you do?
No, I think first is check if they're very bad, if they're suicidal, if they've got violent, if they're in trouble, if they lock their family inside the room, so that and you need to reach out. But if they say we are all okay, just be okay. But there's one incident I would like to share where we lost a patient. There was this girl, sister of an inspector of police in Bombay. She was working for an insurance company. And then the insurance company, she did not go. And the insurance people, they requested me, can you do something? So we sent a psychologist to her house, Suchitra Idamdar. Then, and Suchitra Idamdar is a wonderful psychologist. She lost her father in COVID a few days ago. She went again and again. Her house was completely in a mess. We called the inspector to at least come so that we can pick her up and put her in a rehab center. And then the neighbor said, people come to her house and we don't know what. And we told all the neighbors, she's mentally ill. Can you help us take her to a rehab center? They all refused. They all refused. And on the next day, she was murdered in her house. So these are the things we have faced. I'll tell you one more incident. An extremely educated woman stopped her pills during her COVID. We sent a counselor to the police station in one part of India. And the police station understood. They sent female constables to her house, but she would not open the door. She would not open the door. And on the 8th day, she started dancing in the nude in the area at 12 o'clock. At this point of time, nobody is there to help. Only support groups do help. And somehow our psychologists could give her a dress and see to it that she was hospitalized in a rehab center who did not charge a penny for the entire process. So also working with NGOs who work with marginalized groups is very important. They have a structure. They have people like what Cheryl said, Ashadan and Ashadan, where she goes with her orphans. There's already a structure. And there there's no need for us to make a very big effort. There we can actually give our inputs and help them to be connected with psychologists and others. So these are the accidents that will happen there. Now who has admitted? I have admitted. Now, the mess. Now this woman is admitted there. Now I have to get her back to her house because she's better. She's good. I'm phoning up the building people and the women of the building people to help me. They're not coming at all. So now I'm going to take care, go to the police station, speak to the senior inspector. They're also scared to touch any issues on mental health and see to it that she comes back and sees that there is some agency which will supervise the medications for a long time. So these are cities are alienated places. There's helplessness across the cities. And nobody cares, by the way. Very few people can do a work. So if we can influence NGOs which work with marginalized groups, they can also take the mental health as an extended activity. And that I think is very, very important.
I want to just share one thing, before we wind up today.
Hemant has put his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Hemant.
Hemant. He went away.
He's lost. Okay. I want to share one thing. In one of the rules, of a group therapy, please do not, make sure that there is no politics happening over there and no religion is happening there, because that can be a slippery. And the third thing is, in the psychiatry support groups, make sure that you are not putting any other doctor down, because people will come and say, "Arey, wo doctor ne mere ko ECT diya, aap achhe doctor ho." Just do not encourage that. Another thing I would just like to share is that, in the pandemic, what we learned was, I know a lot of us have started helplines, and some of the helplines, I was just trying to find out whether they're receiving calls or not. And some people said that, no, we are not receiving calls from doctors. Now I will tell you something that my senior citizens have been doing with doctors is that when we have found that there are doctors who are, they're getting anxious, they're feeling low, staying away from the family. What we have done is we've created a buddy system where we have a senior citizen call up the doctor just to find out whether they've eaten, they've slept well, just kind of look after them in a parental way. Today, I got a request from one of the doctors who's a resident saying that, ma'am, I want to learn English. Do you have someone who can teach me English? I've come from a small village. Now I'm pairing up one English teacher with a doctor. Now, who is helping who over there? And these are just initiatives that come because there are people willing to volunteer and there are people, who need the help, So I think with this, whoever wants to know any more, I know there were questions that we've not answered. Please direct them to us and, we would love to help whoever would want to do it. And
we have posted our email Thursday Musings 8 p.m. at gmail.com. So I'm posting again. Any questions to sir and ma'am will be directed to them. or you can contact them directly. They have been kind enough to give their own phone numbers. I think over to Chairperson Samrit.
Yeah, please.
Chairperson.
Dishad was unmute yourself, please. Sure.
Yeah,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Ram, do you want to say something first?
It was a wonderful session today. I congratulate Dr. Smiling Amrit Pattajoshi and our I'm not getting proper word. I will get a support system for it. The next our moderator who will enthusiastic always picks a very nice topic for us. What I will say is, what I found is, if a person is more than 2-3 people are around and who is supportive, it heals. It brings a healing, and it is most underutilized in our country. And what I feel is, whosoever has a scope of doing in their own setup or their places, it is better and it is right time to do for the betterment of mental health of all people. And what I found is, this is the most democratic way of giving mental health in the hand of people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ram. And absolutely, I think with this, I think Ramzan is over and Eid Mubarak to everybody. I think this is a great initiative that we can start. Absolute amazing experiences shared by Dr. Hari Shetty and Dr. Anjali. And I think we can just take this forward, that we as psychiatrists can help a support group, but we have to realize that we probably cannot be the be all and the end all of that group. We empower other people so that the group kind of functions. A very important learning is also that the support group will not be able to solve all the problems. Sometimes the support group is just for venting out or hearing out somebody so they just feel heard. For example, during this COVID time, we have a support group and we have a number of people who call up, and sometimes they talk about food that they're not got because they're in quarantine, or sometimes it's about financial issues. And as a mental health group, we are not probably able to solve that problem, but just being able to hear them out. So the role of the support group is to probably help people to vent out, hear them out. And if we are going to think that we'll probably solve the problem in the first session, like Dr. Hari Shetty said, it may not happen. We will have to wait for the support group to, have a life of its own, give it time so that it can develop, people kind of network with each other, and then we will probably reap the benefits of the support group much later. So thank you so much for this amazing and interactive session, and I hope that all of us here today can take this forward, that we really make a difference, especially during this COVID pandemic.
Over to Dr. Tufan, sir.
Tufan, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I have also shared my full experience, and I do believe that support groups will be helpful. And there are many areas we can have support. We can have a support group of the COVID warriors, our doctors, our staff being distressed. A number of calls come from them. And we have to accept some risks in that. We cannot do away with that. That is my feeling. And I have a clinical psychologist with me who works, and I think I can utilize her to have this and choose my preference of support group. Myself and Amrit will talk and we'll do it. We work together in one medical college. We can plan it well. And I have got another suggestion. Can we have another full Thursday musings and this, where all the participants who are interested in the support groups can come out with their proposals to be discussed. Proposals that come in. In addition to having sharing the documents sent by Haris in the next meeting, we can invite him as a speaker to that. But in addition to that, we should have another meeting, because some practical experiences needs to be shared. I think Harish will be agreeable for that, right?
Anjali and me will do it. We'll do it
Yeah,
jointly,
yeah.
Anjali.
Yeah, sure. We'll have it again. 1.5 hour only, in addition to the next Thursday.
Amrit.
Yeah.
Okay,
Amrit,
thank
we
you.
have so many.
Thank you.
Sorry, sir.
Yes, no. Thank you, everybody. Thank
One-
you.
One.
Yes.
Over to Amrit. Amrit,
Ah.
can we take this opportunity? You are a current direct council member of IPS. We have so many committees, subcommittees, task forces. Why not have a thing on this support group? And Harish Shetty sir is there, Anjali ma'am is there.
टास्क फोर्स मत बनाओ यार, आप हमारे नेता है, आप आदेश दो, फरमान दो, फतवा दो, हम लोग काम करेंगे। टास्क फोर्स बनेगा तो फिर ब्यूरोक्रेसी में अटक जाएगा। मीटिंग करो।
No, nothing will be sir. We'll carry this forward. Once Dr. Harish sir shares a paper on a Sunday or a Saturday, based on their availability, we can have a 1 hour, 1.5 hour meeting, which will be Zoom, which will be issue based. We'll have an agenda, we'll discuss it, no hearsay, and then we'll give it to the IPS as a proposal. Alim, I think I can tell you to do this on behalf of the IPS. I'll be helping you. So the formal thank you, let me, on behalf of the IPS Odisha State Branch, this is the initiative of the IPS Odisha State Branch, Thursday Musings. It has been by your gracious presence, your active participation and your support. It's hugely successful in terms of the speakers we have been able to bring in, the topics we have been able to bring, and it's a very free, we have a lot of discussions going on. It's not just that Dr. Harish Shetty comes and throws something at us and we drink it and go back. It's something beyond what is being thrown at us. So that is the best part of Thursday Musings. And our participation is, we have a very, very loyal group. It's like the Chelsea or the Barcelona fans. They come irrespective of what is going around them, because somewhere this is. So we had around 295 logins today, a peak of 210, and that is a wonderful thing on a Thursday evening. So first of all, let me congratulate. We had the two heavyweight or the heaviest weighters, Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli batting together, getting Anjali madam and Harish Shetty. It is like India today out together, times and whatever you can tell together. So it's glamour, substance, weight, and their pleasing personalities. They're so approachable. You see them yesterday. You must have seen Anjali madam in India today. You must have seen Harish Shetty tweet being liked by Prime Minister, but they're here, they're with you and they're discussing with you. So they're absolutely wonderful. And the best part is they share their ideas with you. They just don't keep it to themselves. And that I need to grow only. So that's the best part of true leaders. And बार-बार उन लोग अलीम को लीडर बोल रहे हैं, जबकि अलीम अपने घर में भी लीडर नहीं है, ठीक है? So thank you both of you. Thank you to Dushad boss. He has been our boss in CIP. Boss, we always are afraid of Dr. Dushad sir. The questions he asks, he always make a CTP also hide behind trees. So very kind, consider it. We made him sign a contract not to ask any odd. He had to send us the questions he'll ask. So thank you, Dushad boss, all the way from Arab country. So thank you so much, Sharil madam, gentle, pleasant, somebody who knows how to balance work, home. We read her biography in the heroes, and it was wonderful. She's always approachable, affable. And I had also called her once for, madam, you are one of our speakers also. Maybe later on we'll call you on DBT or be ready for that. So I've heard you speak in Calcutta. It was wonderful. So we will always like to have you as a speaker. Thank you to Dr. Tufan sir, the chairperson. He's doing everything. He's always on the background, seeing what is happening. And he came in at the last moment. He never, tried to ask questions, give his views. That's the best part of a true, statesman. That's what we call him in our Odisha State Branch. He's always there, organizing, helping, but always never in the limelight. He tells me, Amrit, you go on stage. Let me guide you. So that's how we work. We work in the same college, and sir has always guided us. Alim, as usual, he started with 3, 4, 6s in the morning. He always tend to grab all the attention. He wanted to get attention away from Dr. Anjali and Dr. Harish, but finally we managed to put him at bay. Thank you, Torrent. Thank you, Odisha State Bank. Thank you to everybody with us. Have a safe weekend. And we would like to invite you again next Thursday with Dr. Shekhar Seshadri. Who will be speaking on grief, actually. We have been planning all this for the last 2-3 weeks, how to handle it, because that's what we're going to see, a tsunami of this. And we would request you to please join us if possible, we'll have a discussion and then carry these things forward. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Hope to meet you next Thursday in Thursday
Thank you,
Musings.
Amrit, also. Amrit, thank you to you.
Thank you for. Good night.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank
Right,
you.
everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. It's so
Good night.
nice.
Nice of you.
And